Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Terry Talk. This week, I want to talk to you about a recent conversation I had with a CEO friend of mine with respect to hiring. So, as we know right now, you'd have to be asleep for the last little while to understand that the economy is very, very interesting, especially when we look at unemployment rates, the lowest rates in modern history, frankly. It's epically unbelievable how low the unemployment rate is. So, not a news flash. This has been talked about at length. Hiring is hard, period. We've talked about before the perils of do-it-yourself recruiting. Put a link in here so you can take a look at that Terry Talk. Want to focus on today, can you afford to really get the hiring process wrong? And of course, the answer is you probably can't. So, recent chat with a CEO friend of mine. They were hiring for a really critical position, director of operations. They did the traditional interview, had the person come in. They got the senior leadership team involved, so they had multiple interviews. They even brought in some of their board members to kind of vet the process. They felt they'd done everything. They did the reference checks, the whole 9 yards, aces, right? Like nailed it, right? The candidate, charismatic, strategic. In fact, the candidate did the exact same job in almost the exact same company in the industry, very similar. So this was a slam dunk. They had leadership skills coming out the wazoo, slam dunk time, right? Well, 3 months in, they had to let the person go. They figured in that short period of time, lost about $30,000 to $50,000. The team that this person was responsible for, incredibly demotivated, incredibly disengaged over about 9 months ago now, still rebuilding that team, like epic, huge impact, negative on the team. And the CEO also said, my time was distracted, spending a lot of time working with the individual, trying to bring them back into the fold, as it were. The opportunity cost was huge. The distraction was massive. Took their eyes off the prize, et cetera, et cetera. You've seen this movie before, I'm sure. So I asked the question, well, why did this happen? Well, the best guess they could come up with was they got stuck in confirmation bias. Confirmation bias took hold. Nobody on the team really asked questions that would surface contradicting information. This was a person who turns out it was all sizzle, no steak. And all that sizzle, they were absolutely wowed by, which is appropriate. That's what candidates do in interviews. But they recognized as well, and this I think was the key, they weren't as good at hiring as they thought they were. So I said, what would make a difference? Well, first of all, they said, getting some training for our managers, our team, the folks that are responsible for this. No one on their team had ever had any formal training on how to do an interview and do it properly. But they kind of felt they knew it. They also thought maybe, this is through our conversation, assigning a devil's inquisitor, not a devil's advocate. Devil's advocate really has to hold on to a position and fight for the contrarian point of view. It's a difficult role to have. But a devil's inquisitor is somebody who just asks the contrarian questions without necessarily having to hold to them. That would have surfaced some information that probably would have been very enlightening. They also recognized with all their biases, a third party would have been very, very helpful in this. They also felt getting to the person's values would have made a huge difference as well. They didn't get a surface on those, and what they were getting was a lot of fluff. And let's remember, our candidates today are very well trained coming in to talk to us when they're coming in to interview. And finally, they also were wondering how they might fit with the culture. So some of the key takeaways. Number one, get help. There's lots of help available. Ask, what are we missing? If it seems too good to be true, well, let's hope that's not the case, but sometimes it is. So ask those contrarian questions. Get that devil's inquisitor, if you will. Partner with a third party who can be objective, because sometimes it's very difficult to be objective. Coach your interviewers. Give them the help that they need. Give them the skills that they need to be much more impactful with respect to hiring. And use good, solid, relevant scientific evidence-based assessments. For example, had we done a leadership assessment, this person would have shone like unbelievably. That wouldn't have made a difference, wouldn't have flagged some of the issues. But maybe doing an emotional intelligence assessment might have raised some red flags to maybe even slow the process down and dig a little bit deeper. Or better yet, asking questions around what their preferred culture is versus what your culture is. And yes, people have seen me talk before will know that you can measure culture. In fact, we have a tool here at ARIA that helps organizations not only determine what their current culture is, but also what the candidate, what their culture, preferred culture is. When those two mesh, beautiful. When they're not, again, another red flag. So bottom line, don't leave this to chance. It's a very competitive market out there. You want to make sure you get it right, because when you get it wrong and you have to go back into that marketplace again, it's going to drag things out even longer. Opportunity costs are huge. Always looking for your comments. Love to hear from you. Drop them in the comments down below. Send us a note. Love to hear what your thoughts are on this, and we'll see you again soon.